So I'm with Scott Tingley, better known for your role at Watford and picking up a clutch of awards for good pitches there, great pitches there. Yeah, you're now involved here with Udinese. There's a connection with the owners, obviously, but how did the kind of conversations come about and you start looking at this as a project?
So, the actual initial conversation was we were having a conversation about the possibility of reconstructing a couple of pitches at our training ground at Watford. So I was invited in for a meeting with the owner and the chief exec at Watford to have a conversation about pitches and where I felt we wanted to go with the pitches at the training ground and the investment that I was looking for. I came out of the meeting with no investment in the pitches at Watford and gained Udinese. So something I think I got tucked up a little bit there, but I ended up with a new responsibility and one that actually I was quite looking forward to taking on. I've been doing some consultancy stuff here prior to sort of pre-COVID sort of stuff, and realistically we were getting to a point where I was travelling over here fairly regularly. The advice that I was given was probably not being taken, and I just probably felt I was wasting sort of his money and my time a little bit. And we kind of agreed we're both very similar in terms of, this is me and the owner, we're both very similar in terms of the fact that if we're going to go into something, we do it whole hog, we do it 100%, and it's like we either do it properly or not at all. And we basically had like quite a frank conversation at the training ground, and it was very much like, right, are we going to commit to it or not? And we both said that we'd like to do it. For me, it was kind of something that it gave me another opportunity to manage another pitch in another country and to have an involvement where I felt I'd started something, and felt I could change stuff and felt I could make an improvement, make a difference, but just didn't really get the opportunity previously. So yeah, it was just about making a genuine commitment and going into it with the view of trying to produce what we've got here now, really.
Scott, so you had the initial conversation. I guess you then had to go away and put a plan together. I'm making a grand assumption that the finances in Serie A are not quite what you're getting at Watford in the Premier League. So did you have a number of conversations, or did plan A get through?
No, so plan A got through, but it was very much... the conversation was around the basis that because basically it's completely new to this football club. They've never had an in-house grounds team. They've never had, but they trust what we want to put in, but it's very new to them. So a lot of it was around kind of baby steps, go in, make a change, but do it on minimal cost. Try and spend money where it was really necessary, and just kind of like, for instance, the pitch lights. Like in my mind, we want different rigs. With these ones, I just kind of look at it and go, well, we've got them. Let's try and use them for a year. Let's not just spend money for the sake of spending money, and actually try and produce the goods with a limited budget and limited sort of machinery and stuff. So we basically just went down the route of getting everything that we felt was important. So we bought a tractor, we bought a little verti drain, we bought the tractor had a bucket on it, which meant that we can do some top dressing, we can move material around and stuff like that. There was a couple of bits already here. We bought a pedestrian sprayer. We bought 2 Danish G860s with scarifying cassettes. So my theory was we can cut grass, we can remove grass, we can scarify. We then bought a tractor mounted rake, which gives us the opportunity to sort of stand the grass up, scratch the surface and remove debris. We then bought 2 Dennis rotary machines, so that we've then got the opportunity to clean all of that mess up as well. So it just kind of give us like a couple of fertiliser spreaders as well, a couple of little bits, sort of key implements, some forks and just random hand tools. And basically the idea was we can do everything we need to do with limited machinery, and one machine can do multiple tasks and stuff like that. And a lot of it, to be honest with you, was down to what was available. So I was given the responsibility in May 2021. We renovated the pitch 2 weeks later. Unfortunately, somebody's passport had expired and couldn't be here for the renovation process, so I actually flew out on my birthday, which was the 5th of June, so just after that. And the day that I landed here was the day that the pitch was seeded. So although I had an involvement in like the renovation side of it and the specification of it, I wasn't here for it. I couldn't unfortunately see it in action, but kind of trusted the guys to do the right job. At the end of the day, we got the contractors involved, which was Rappo, and I kind of trusted their judgment. We spoke on the phone throughout the renovation process. They sent me some photos. We went through certain elements of it, because the pitch originally was a turf pitch nine years ago. and that had then been stitched through with cisgrass. So what we actually had was a turf that went in 9 years ago, which was probably 45, 50 millimetres thick, which comes in with thatch, has then never been renovated for 9 years. So we've got to try and get that out without disturbing the plastic fibres and stuff. So that was quite a complex sort of task, and one that I wanted to be here for, but unfortunately it just didn't work out that way. I just genuinely didn't know that my passport had expired, so I had to mess about with that for a week.
So that went to plan, yeah. When you got to the point of, you're here for the seeding, the grow-in happens, yeah. What was it like managing remotely in those early days?
Very challenging. So we had, there's a lad who works for me at the training ground, Thomas Rennie, back at Watford. Tom's one of our senior groundsmen. Tom came out here with me the day that the pitch was seeded. We spent a week here together just getting certain things in place, making sure that he was comfortable in the hotel, just making him aware of how he could get into work and how he can get out, how he can get in the building. And the places like Fort Knox, so getting in and out of the gate when you don't speak Italian is pretty difficult. Just little bits like that, getting some machinery in place, getting some products in and stuff, and getting like kind of a plan together. So we went down that route, and I left Tom here. I left at the end of the week and left Tom here for, originally it was meant to be 7 weeks. Tom was pulling his hair out after 4, and eventually I think he came back after 9. He actually ended up having to stay a little bit longer. Getting Oliver out here took a little bit longer than we probably expected. And as a result, there was a bit of a period where we couldn't allow Tom to come back because Oliver wasn't here. So it's a little bit of a lag period that we had to get over. But managing it remotely was difficult because Tom has been through that process before, but never on his own. And it's something that he would phone me up and go to me, "Oh, what do you think of this?" And it's really difficult when you can't see it. Yeah. It's really difficult kind of doing it over like a video call or something like that. It's really difficult to see because you can see it, but the video quality is not great, and realistically you're trusting his judgment. Which was exactly why he was the one that came out here as well. It had to be somebody. It couldn't be one of my sort of assistants, if you like, because they had roles and responsibilities at Watford. But it needed to be somebody that had experience managing irrigation, managing fertiliser programs and stuff like that. And Tom, I think, kind of went home from his period here really disappointed with what he'd achieved. But I've got nothing but admiration for Tom and the time that he spent out here, and the effort that he put in is the reason why we're in the position we're in today. I think he'd done the hard work, and he was here on his own, and he was away from his partner, and he was kind of, I'd imagine, very lonely the whole time he was here. And I know he had a few sort of moments where he was definitely incredibly frustrated with the place, and just knew it just didn't speak the language and stuff. And I guess it's a completely different climate as well. You're looking at 40 odd degrees in the summer, and trying to grow a pitch in 40 degrees in the best will in the world is difficult. Doing it on your own, not being able to cut every day because realistically you just haven't got enough time in the day to be able to do it. It's 40 degrees, you've got to be watering, and then you've got shade issues because of a big stand that we're sitting in. A real challenge for Tom, and we'd probably both say that when Tom left it, we probably weren't in a great place with a sort of, I think we were 3 weeks away from our first game. Right. And a lot of that really was just malfunctioning irrigation equipment, temperatures, the fact that he was on his own, he was just very limited to what he could do. And I visited him a couple of times throughout that period, and we'd kind of be really productive for 2 days, and then I'd go again. And it was all about getting Oliver here and getting the setup where you had 2 people and they could bounce off of each other. So we had Jack came over just before Oliver did, so he was here. Jack had to quarantine because of sort of vaccination status and stuff like that, so he had to do 5 days quarantine here. So he come over and did that. He then spent a few days with Tom, and they were working together, quite productive. Myself and Oliver then came out, and I was here for I think 3 days with Oliver, and all of a sudden they could make real headway sort of thing in terms of actually improving stuff. Having 2 people here every day meant that the pitch could be cut when it needed to be cut, and we were looking at it thinking, in places we were quite thin, some places we were absolutely perfect, and others a little bit thin in terms of grass density. And me and Oliver just kind of agreed straight away that the only way we were going to thicken that up was through just keep working the plant, keep cutting it as much as possible. feeding it and cutting it and watering it and feeding it and cutting it and watering it, and just kind of going down that route of quite basic stuff really, but stuff that we felt we really needed to do to make a push to the start of the season, because we actually ended up we had 3 weeks until the season started, and there were some areas where we were almost completely sand and the plastic fibres, just because of the heat really. Any seed that we got coming through just burnt off. It just couldn't cope with the heat in like the midday sun, and then you obviously then get the issues with humidity and stuff overnight, get disease, and just as we felt like we were making one step forward, we took two back. And I think really it took till sort of the real autumn months before this pitch actually became a real proper like elite level football pitch really. So the summer was definitely challenging, and managing it remotely was not easy at all, but all credit to Tom really for getting that through.
So when you did your plan, there's an equipment plan, there's a staffing plan. What was in place when you took over and first got involved, and what was the process involved in making a decision on how you wanted to run it, or was it kind of, it was never going to be any other way?
No, it was probably never going to be any other way, just purely because I felt like I knew the place to a certain degree, and I knew what we needed to put in place. I knew that the club were willing to invest in machinery and give us the tools to do the job, but at the same time we kind of had an agreement whereby we're not going to go crazy. This is about changing an ethos in the football club and allowing everybody to understand what a good football pitch can sort of add in terms of value to a team and in terms of the way they can perform. So I think a lot of it was just about getting the right things in place, the minimum stuff we needed to be able to do the job. And I think this whole project will just evolve gradually over the years to come. And staffing wise, I think it was, I never actually expected to get anybody with kind of the calibre of Oliver. Kind of put out a tentative sort of job advert on Instagram, on like a story, because I just kind of wanted a targeted audience. It was very difficult because there was contractors in place at the time, and we couldn't just go widespread with an advert. So I just never imagined I'd get anybody that kind of really had that level of experience and kind of ability to manage a pitch.
I guess what I'm driving at, Scott, is was it always going to be a British or an English groundsman?
Not necessarily, no. I think in an ideal world, somebody Italian speaking would have been great. Somebody northern speaking is what we got. He's not going to thank me for that one at all. But no, I just think somebody Italian speaking would have been great, because I think you've then got that sort of relationship straight away. You can have conversations, you can get your point across without any confusion, and that's been difficult, I think, the whole time, not just for me but for Oliver as well, on a daily basis, just communicating with people. A lot of the time you think you've got your point across and they agree and they go yeah no problem, and we move on, and a week later we're like, well, that's not happened. Why has that not happened? You go to them and they go, oh no, we thought you meant this, and it's just completely different. And that bit's been really difficult, and I think in the event that we could have got somebody that was Italian speaking, that had the right credentials and was willing to work with me on the project, then I mean, in an ideal world I guess that would have been perfect, but we don't live in an ideal world, and I think we've actually probably benefited from having Oliver actually, and his sort of sheer determination to make this work. So the fact that the language barrier is there is kind of, he's got round that really, for shouting at people.
From your point of view, what have you learned from this experience?
That I don't understand Italian. I think that grass in different climates is very tricky. I think in terms of learning how resilient people can be, definitely. How resilient Oliver is, how resilient Tom was in the summer, and how people deal with adversity as well. I think you probably don't give people enough credit at times, and I think that's probably one thing I've learned is actually when you know, if you chuck someone in a swimming pool, they've got a choice. They either sink or they swim. And I think that's kind of, when you actually put people in that position, like you just see how resilient people are, how tough they are, how intuitive people can be, and how like they can just adapt. And I think that's probably been the biggest thing I've learned is to be able to feel confident in people and trust people to do a job, because actually they can do it. It's just putting them out there and taking them out of their comfort zone and seeing what they can do.
And that kind of pastoral side of things, I mean, as you're saying, you know, what a job people can do, but that kind of loneliness that can come into it, you know, people are far away from home, perhaps a bit isolated from, you know, their pals, etc. Has that been part of what you've been trying to deal with and been more conscious of?
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation. I actually, Tom phoned me one day. I was off. I had a week off, and I'd gone down to Sussex to play some golf with some friends and stuff. And Tom phoned me. I'd played golf. We'd been playing golf at East Sussex National one afternoon, and jumped in the car, and I had missed calls from Tom. Tom was here at the time, and I was so I phoned Tom back, and I was driving, and I had about an hour's journey, and I spoke to Tom for the whole hour. My friend was in the passenger seat. And he actually turned around and said to me when we finished the phone conversation, my mate Steve said to me, he went, "Oh, I thought he was gonna like commit then." He was like, "I just didn't realise somebody could be so sort of down about something, you know." And it made me think about it. And I was like, I've put somebody into an environment where they're completely on their own. They're away from their family. They're away from their friends. They don't speak the language. The culture is completely different. The food's different. They're in a hotel. They're like so limited to what they can do. It's not like you're in Milan and there's loads of stuff going on. You're in Udine, and it's like it's a very quiet town. There is stuff to do, but when you're on your own, I guess you're probably limited. You can go for a walk maybe, or go to the shops. But once you've walked around them once, do you really want to walk around them again? I just think I think Tom probably got to a point where he was frustrated with the job, frustrated with sort of people within the club just sort of not really understanding, because it was completely new to everybody, why they couldn't walk on the pitch, why they couldn't come out and have a phone conversation while smoking a fag. It was a complete change of everything, and I think he got stuck here in a bit of a rut, and that actually dawned on me that day having that conversation with him, that actually I probably needed to give him more support, and we were talking every day, but we were talking about the grass bit, and we weren't talking about how Tom was, how Tom felt. You know, I relied on him saying to me, "Scott, I'm not happy," or "Scott, I've got this going on," or whatever. And the fact that he didn't, I guess I kind of ignored it maybe, or not, just didn't realise it was happening. And I think it just kind of all bubbled over that day. And actually, I kind of spoke to Tom again. I think later on, I think the signal cut out because we were going through some wooded areas and stuff. The signal cut out, and I called Tom back when I got back to the lodge that I was staying in, and I had a proper conversation with Tom. And I literally turned around and said to him, I went, "Look, just you're coming back soon. Keep your chin up. Like, you've done a good job. You know, like, I'll be out next week, and we'll have a proper look at everything, and we'll make a plan, and we'll go from there." And I think that Tom needed that. He needed a pick up. He needed someone to say to him, "Look, you're doing a good job. It's nearly over. You're going to be coming back." And I think if you ask Tom what he got from it, I think he learned a hell of a lot. But I think he also got incredibly frustrated with the whole situation, and probably just, I don't know, maybe found out a lot about himself that he didn't know, and I think he'd be overall probably disappointed with what he achieved here, but actually what he achieved set us up for now and put us in the position that we're in. So I think a lot of credit's got to go to Tom for that, and just holding out and doing the job to the best of his ability.
Has that realisation impacted on how you manage back at Watford?
Yeah, I think so. I think the whole sort of mental health element of our industry, I've never understood. I've always just genuinely felt that was a cop out for people that didn't want to work. Probably definitely the wrong thing to say, but I think that's where I was at. That's what I had in my head.
It's a very honest thing to say.
Yeah, well, I think you have to be, and I'm probably well known for being honest. Like, I'd say what I think and deal with the consequences later, as we've discussed already today. But I think, like, I never really believed it. I never really thought it was a thing. And I think more so this year I've realised that through that element with Tom. I think that's helped me manage Jack, who come out, Jonathan, who came out, and Sean, who's out here currently, just to, you know, check in with them regularly and not really ask them about the work, just "Are you okay?" sort of thing. And I think a lot of that also came from the Turf Business Summit, with obviously what happened with Carl up on the stage and him talking about it, and people actually realising that you can talk about it, and that even though we are sort of grown men, we can get upset and we can sort of put ourselves in positions where we struggle with things. And let's face it, I think our jobs are quite high profile, like, not high profile but high pressure. And I've spoken quite a lot about your 3 o'clock kickoff deadline doesn't move, regardless of whether you feel under the weather or whether you feel stressed with stuff or whether you feel like the pitch is in a good enough place for that fixture to take place. So yeah, I think I come out of the summit definitely with a different mentality towards it, and I kind of said that I would check in on my staff every week, and I kind of made a sort of a promise to myself as well to take more time off and kind of do that. That bit I've struggled with. I've probably still got a long way to go on me taking enough time back to make sure I'm okay. Have I asked all of my staff if they're okay every week, like I said I would? No, because I've got a lot going on. But what I will do is I'll check up on people if I feel like they need to have a conversation. If I walk around the training ground and I get 5 minutes to talk to one of the staff, I'll ask him if he's okay. And I feel like that's probably gone a long way. And I'd say the lads have probably noticed me do that a little bit more. But again, it's probably an evolving sort of project where I'll probably get there eventually, where I ask them all the time and make sure that everyone's okay. But
so you personally are making progress on that. Do you think the industry now is, because of things like Carl opening up?
Yeah, it's exposure. It's exposure to stuff like that. It's a willingness for people to admit that they get upset, that they get frustrated, that they get stressed with things and stuff like that. I'd always probably think of myself as quite a manly man, I think, and somebody that would turn around and go, well, if I say that, I'm admitting it, you know, and it's difficult to do that. And it's difficult to maybe look weak or look like you feel like you're weak, if you know what I mean, or that people would interpret you as being weak. But it's the way of the world now, really. Do you know what I mean? And I think, as much as I say I definitely didn't believe in it, I think I touched on depression through COVID. Definitely, I was very fortunate I could go to work, but I couldn't go to work and do exactly what I wanted to do all the time, because we were having to manage staff. We were having to make sure that people were available all the time, so we were splitting shifts and people were all over the place, and it was difficult to manage, and everybody was going through the same thing. You know, everybody was stuck indoors, everybody wanted to get out of the house. I was fortunate that I could, but I still ended up in a position where I was a bit like, I just want this to be over, you know, I want to get back on with my life. I want to kind of just got incredibly frustrated with being told what I could do, and then you have all of that, but yet football's coming back, and yeah, we've stopped for 8, 9, 10 weeks or whatever we stopped for, but football's coming back and I've got a pitch to produce, and then we're going to play football again. And then the club are trying to stay in the Premier League at that time as well, fighting for their lives, and you're like, well, what I do kind of is going to contribute towards that one way or another. So I think that was quite tough, and I guess I've probably definitely adapted to everything, and I think the industry has as a whole. Definitely, I think having things like the Turf Business Summit where you can sit there and have a conversation, an open discussion in a room with, I don't know, you'd be able to tell me how many people were there. So I mean, you sit there with that many people, and let's face it, the majority of the people in the room were men. And I think when you see other men get upset, and you get to see other men actually kind of come out with that stuff and be comfortable to do it in a room full of other men, like, no way would I be able to do that. No way. I can sit here and talk to you now and say I touched on depression. That's easy. But doing it in a room with people, I think we're adapting and we're learning, and I think a lot of credit has to go to certain individuals for that. Obviously Carl with him standing up and talking about it, but it took him to go through it, to actually understand it and to realise what others need in order to deal with it. So I think Carl's definitely going to be an ambassador for that, but the whole industry seems to be taking it on a little bit more and understanding it. So yeah, I'd say that we're probably in a better place for it.
This whole process, I mean, we've had a number of chats over the years. You're a guy that's ambitious, you like to be challenged. I'm sure this has been a challenge. Have you enjoyed the process so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a challenge for me to a certain degree, but the challenge really has been for the staff. I think Oliver coming here, the challenge for me, I guess, has been managing his expectations. Like I said to you this morning, his expectations is he wants to come here, he wants to produce the best pitch he possibly can. But he's in another country where the mentality is different. He doesn't speak the language. The machinery is very limited. It's what we need to do the job, not what we want to do the job. I've got everything at Watford. I can top dress the pitch whenever I want. I can aerate it whenever I want. The budget's there. I've got the pitch lights. I've got the pitch reinforcement. I've got the undersoil heating. I can use it whenever I like. It's different here, and I think that's kind of managing other people's expectations, especially Oliver's. And I mean, he's done a great job. You know, you walk on it today. He's been kind of frustrated with it. It's not where he wants it. No, it's not where any of us want it. But what he's producing is an incredible football pitch to play football on, and something that they've never had here before. You know, and the compliments he gets every week from not only the home team but away teams. I know he had compliments from Zlatan Ibrahimovic, which for him as a Man United fan and somebody that kind of somebody as high profile as him to turn around and say what a pitch, like, thank you for producing that for one game. And like, I think when you look at it like that, it's a good achievement, and what he's produced on a limited budget, limited resources is incredible, really. But that's for me, it's not really been that much of a challenge. My challenge has been dealing with Oliver. So at the end of the day, I've got a job to do at Watford, and I think there's a lot of times where I've got a lot going on, and Oliver wants to rant or he wants to vent to me about stuff, and he wants my input. And sometimes I've got to a point where I've just gone, I can't deal with this today. That I've got so much going on that I can't be sat there talking to him on the phone. I can't be sat there sending messages backwards and forwards. I've got emails to deal with this place as well. And I think there's been some times where it's probably been a little bit overwhelming for me as well. And that's probably been my challenge, is the overwhelming sort of nature of dealing with two places in two different countries at the same time. That especially where I think if we had everything in place here, it would be a lot easier. And the more Oliver grows into the role, the less that's becoming an issue, if you know what I mean. So I think that's probably testimony to him getting on with it and pushing himself to be able to deal with things himself, and he's definitely capable of doing it. I think a lot of it is kind of not wanting to tread on my toes, but I've been very keen to sort of point out to him that this is his head groundsman's role. Yeah. My influence here is kind of a consultancy role, if you like. I'm there when he needs me. I'm there to put stuff in place. My job really is to give him the tools to do the job, and that's going to come over time. We've got, like I said, bare minimum stuff at the moment to do the job, and he's doing a great job with it. But things evolve, you know. We'll probably look down the route of new pitch lights. We'll probably look at changing the irrigations and make it more effective. There'll be a capex budget put in place that means that we can start upgrading machinery gradually and stuff like that. But it's a lengthy process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, because that's not what this process was ever set out to be at the start. It was a go in, improve things, and make gradual sort of steps towards what we've achieved at Watford. And if we can get there over a sort of a 3 to 5 year period, then that's where we want to be.
It's very obvious that improvements are being made and there's benefits to Udinese. Do you think there are also benefits to the Watford staff and your team, because you've got some young guys getting experience out here? Is that paying you back at base, as it were?
Yeah, definitely. I think we had probably the best example of that is probably Jonathan. So Jonathan was out here from October through to sort of mid maybe late December. I think he came back just before Christmas. And Jonathan's kind of in a sort of a situation or a period in his career where he's come on leaps and bounds, and he's at a point where he's got to push on now and go to kind of do his level 3 and really push on with his knowledge side of things. And for him to come out and I mean he works with us at the stadium at Watford, and he thinks for himself, but majority of the time he does what I set them to do for the day. You know, so he's kind of following a process, follows it perfectly, puts the time and the effort in, works hard, is happy to walk all of the miles he has to walk behind a mower and stuff like that. He's happy to do the hours, and he really wants the end product, which is like he wants to be a head groundsman. He wants to do that. He wants to follow that process. But I think him coming here and having to be part of a two-man team, and they're having to think for themselves. He's having to give back to Ollie as well and help him out. I think that's really made a big difference for Jonathan. He's come back so much more mature and kind of understanding of the situation, and like that's going to benefit us at Watford. And he's one example of that. Sean's at the start of his journey. Really, he started with us. He's only really been a groundsman since I think May last year. So he's now come out here and done sort of 7 or 8 weeks, and a great experience for him. You can see already he's thinking about stuff, and he's kind of he's when you're involved, you get so much more of an understanding. When you're watching somebody else do it, or when you're being told what to do every step of the way, I think you kind of get limited. And for them to come here and have an active involvement in managing a pitch rather than just kind of walking behind a mower and doing what they're told to do, just makes such a big difference. And I think that's one thing that we're keen to keep. I think the plan here long term is to not have my staff here permanently. So at the moment we've pretty much had one of my staff here right from the start. In fact, we have. Somebody's been here the whole time from my Watford team. The plan is to hopefully branch into the training ground. If we branch into the training ground, we're going to increase the staff numbers. There'll be full-time employees here. But what we've kind of discussed as well is that we don't want to take away the link between Watford and Udinese as well. So what we kind of want to do is have an opportunity where if Ollie's really up against it with games, he's got 3 games in a week. He's got loads of training going on at the training ground. If we've branched that into that part, and he needs some extra help, well then we'll send somebody for 2 weeks, and it'll become more of an experience thing rather than asking somebody to commit 2 or 3 months of their life to go and live in another country. So, and I think all the lads will benefit from that far more than coming here for an extended period of time. Just being able to come over, and it's really cheap and easy to get over here. Now that we're kind of sort of relinquishing the testing side of things, it's actually been really expensive to get people over here this year because of the testing and stuff. I know there was one occasion where it actually cost us £800 to get Cameron here for a week. There's no hotels, it's just flights. That's flights, COVID tests and stuff like that, which is crazy, because I actually then flew Jonathan back for €7, which just makes the whole thing. Yeah. It's just a mockery of the whole thing, really. But that's what we've had to do to make it work. We don't want to keep doing that. We don't want to keep bringing people backwards and forwards all the time. It's going to be like somebody's going to be sort of seconded for an experience for 2-3 weeks, something like that. There'll still be a reasonable sort of chunk of time that they're going to be here. They're not going to come for 2 days and come back. They're not going to come over for a match day and come back. They'll be here for 2-3 weeks, and that'll be when Ollie's really busy, or perhaps when we're not so busy, and actually we can afford to send somebody over and gain that experience of working closely with somebody with that sort of level of experience in another country, with different grasses and different climate and stuff like that. So I think it'll be a good link up to keep in place and just kind of broaden the lads' sort of knowledge and sort of experience, really.
The guys that have come over, do you think, obviously it's going to benefit them long term, but do you think because there has been progress made that is quite obvious, that's really helped them with, one, a sense of achievement and maybe a bit of confidence?
Yeah, I think it's just having responsibility for something. I think they've all kind of thrived off of being involved, rather than. I think it's very easy. Like obviously, when I was at Arsenal, I was kind of very easy to get swallowed up. You're in a big team. There's 17, 18 other groundsmen, and sometimes you can just find yourself. Like I went from Stamford Bridge, where I was actively involved every day and learning loads really quickly, to going to a training ground where actually, I still learnt a lot. And I was learning different things. We were learning the renovation side of things and that. But sometimes I'd sit for 2 weeks on a triple, cutting grass, and I'd be tripling pitches, and then the next day I'd be on a Dennis Prem and I'd be cutting pitches, and I'd be marking out white lines and stuff like that. And before you know it, you look at it and go, I've just cut grass for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden then you don't feel as important, or you don't feel like you are definitely important to that whole process, but it's just you almost feel like you stagnate for a couple of weeks. And I think it's very easy to kind of just go through the motions and look back and go, well, where's the last year of my life gone? What have I actually learned? So I think coming here and having that experience is definitely valuable to them, and they're all thriving off of that, really. I think we're getting more and more people now putting their hands up, whereas after Tom's experience, a lot of people kind of went into their shell a little bit and kind of went, well, I was really looking forward to going out there, but now I'm not. Jack then had a great time, and really enjoyed the whole process, and was giving feedback back to the lads, and you just kind of, like, they were messaging in their WhatsApp groups and stuff, and you can see people's interest started to peak again a little bit. Jonathan then came and had an even better time, and kind of really enjoyed it and really sort of pushed on his knowledge and experience and stuff while he was here. And I think a few other people now are just starting to put their hands up and going, well, actually I want that experience, I want to go and do that.
Scott, one, thank you for the invite over here. It's great, to spend time here, and thanks for organising it. There's one question I've always wanted to ask you. Bungle. Yeah. That's the nickname. Where did that come from?
So that came from. It was actually given to me as a nickname at Chelsea, and it was because every now and then I used to let my hair grow quite a lot. I used to have I'd let my beard grow quite a lot, especially in the winter time. And I've got a hairy chest, and basically what they said was that my hair all connected at some part, and I'd look like Bungle out of Rainbow. I then went to Arsenal, and on my very first day, Daniel, one of Steve's assistants, said to me, "Have you got a nickname?" And I didn't realise this was a big thing at Arsenal. Everybody had a nickname, and if you didn't already have one, you were going to get one anyway. And I mentioned it, and it really stuck. And it was really strange. I had Arsene Wenger call me Bungle at some point, and it was really weird that people called me Bungle. But I kind of got used to it, and that's what people used to call me all the time. Definitely could have been a lot worse, so I'll take it, and I've got used to it, I guess.
And I thought it was because you bungled something, but there we go, mate. No. Scott, thanks again, mate.
No problem.
Real pleasure.
Cheers.